Hello, everybody. I am here today with John Loomer, who is one of the foremost experts on all things relating to Facebook. And today we are going to talk a little bit about the most common mistakes people make when getting into Facebook advertising. How you doing today, John?
I am doing great. Thanks, Dave.
It's great to hear. Before we get into all that, I would like to kind of give the listeners a bit of a background on how you got started, maybe tell your story and then what got you into Facebook advertising, and we'll go on to some more details after that.
All right, so I have a long story, so I'll try to do the speed dating version as quickly as possible. So my history is that, I was never classically trained in marketing. I ended up in kind of marketing things. Like I worked for the National Basketball Association, oversaw fantasy games for them, which ended up being all kinds of stuff, which was awesome. That's actually my first exposure to Facebook was back then, 2007. Ended up leaving the NBA, was laid off twice after that, and during bad times in the economy and whatnot. But basically, I was at a point where I didn't want to, move my family again. We kept moving. I didn't want to commute. One of my motivations was, our oldest son is a cancer survivor, so I wanted to see my kids grow up. Didn't want to travel a lot. I wanted to coach my kids' baseball teams. We're a big baseball family. So I didn't know how to start a business, and I just created a site. And I just started writing and made a lot of mistakes along the way.
And you literally knew nothing about Facebook before you got into it?
Oh, I knew about Facebook. I knew nothing about starting a business.
Okay.
So my exposure to Facebook goes back to, again, when I was at the NBA in 2007. We partnered with Facebook. This was before you could actually create your own app. We worked with Facebook to create an app for us. I was the first admin of a Facebook group for the NBA before there were pages. And so that was my first exposure to Facebook and Facebook for Business. But I just fell in love with the platform. So that's what I was most comfortable with, which is why when I started writing, I wrote, in the very beginning I wrote about everything, but a lot of Facebook-related stuff. And eventually I found my way just focusing more and more on Facebook, and then Facebook for Business and Facebook advertising.
Well, there's definitely a lot to dig into. I mean, we're constantly learning something new almost every day. It's overwhelming, and that's why it's great to have people like you to kind of sift through what's most important and to kind of really dig into the details that are really going to move the needle for you. And, we personally learned a ton from you, starting meeting you at the CM World last year where you gave that awesome presentation. And, oh, man, I just took that thing. We watched it, printed everything out, and we just went down line by line by line. And, man,
awesome.
My world opened up. I'm like, oh, my God, I did not realize you could do all of these things with Facebook. And this is coming from somebody who's had been dug into it for a couple years. So, you definitely, you can tell you've done your homework on all of this. Yeah, and when you got started, what were some of the initial mistakes you made?
Well, so in the very beginning, understand that, again, I wasn't real comfortable. I wasn't confident in myself starting a business. So, and I was the only one bringing in an income. With 3 boys, my wife volunteers all the time in the school, and I want to keep that going. So all the pressure was on me, and I was scared to invest. So I was, and actually I didn't even create a page right away. I was like, because again, there's a kind of lack of confidence. Like I saw a page for an individual as being something that's for celebrities. So I didn't even do that for several months, 3 or 4 months. And then, once I started doing that, I was spending the bare minimum on ads. So I was spending $1 a day on Facebook ads. Now, at least I was doing something. But my point was I was so scared to spend any money back then because of all this pressure to make money that I was just spending the bare minimum. And I wish I would have done more. But, I mean, most of my mistakes were less about Facebook and more about a business, right? So I wasn't spending enough just on Facebook ads, but just my brand in general. I didn't have I was not a designer, and I tried to do all the design on my site, and it looked awful. And I mean, it's funny to look back at now, right? And I didn't even have at first. I didn't even have a premium theme. I bought a free theme. My colors were, I can't even, it was like some neon green. I can't even tell you. It was crazy. And I tried to create my own logo. But little things like that. I didn't even have an email list for 6 months. So, you know, I understand. I completely understand businesses that, you know, are making mistakes and are early going. And I hope I can help them prevent them from making those mistakes, some of those same mistakes that I made.
Yeah, and that's definitely what you speak to, and everything that I've you know, that's definitely the angle you take. Like, this is what I've done, this is what I did wrong, and this is what I'm doing now. And I think that that's just a phenomenal way to kind of break it down to layman, you know, education level in regards to Facebook, all the way up to experts as well. And what have you done differently? You mentioned you had some design issues and you know, wanting to invest more. If you could go back in time, what would have you changed from day one, like on day one?
Yeah, I mean, and some of this is what I now apply whenever I try to start a new project, right? So now I immediately create an email list and have some sort of opt-in, even if there's not a lead gen like freebie, just a way to opt in. In fact, I didn't have that for 6 months. It's so ridiculous. But I would, you know, as soon as possible, create something that is of value in exchange for an email address to escalate and build that email list more quickly. But absolutely be investing. I mean, pay people who are trained to do things that you are not. Yeah. Especially anything for first impressions. People come to your site for the first time. What does it look like? What kind of logo do you have? What kind of photography do you use? You know, does it look professional? And if it doesn't, your content can be great and it won't matter in a lot of cases. So a lot of investment, making sure you're using the right software. Again, not cutting corners and doing patchwork, because I was doing all kinds of stuff there too. So I mean, I think that those are the biggest things.
And when you started to try to change your look, did you go through some tools, any specific tools that you used, or did you just get with some talented people to kind of help you with the graphics look? Because you could be super smart on all this stuff, but you just don't have the design eye, and that's coming from somebody like me. I mean, I might like the super smart part, but I also don't have the design eye, and I definitely need to go through people like that. But there's also some tools to help you out with some look of Facebook pages like PageModo and some other things like that. Did you use anything specifically, or was it more of you just got with somebody who had more of a creative graphic design eye?
Well, you know, I used ShortStack, for example, and I still actually the ShortStack designer is the person who does all my design now.
Okay.
So we share that person because she's so awesome, and you know, I was working closely with them. That she's been designing all my stuff for like 3 years now. But even before that, though, before I was working with her and I was using, say, ShortStack, it's still, you know, templates, and so it's not good enough when you're just using a design template. And luckily, and the thing is, you can't really trust your friends and people close to you to be honest about how your business looks and your site looks.
Or your mother.
So, yeah, your mother. So John Robinson, my business manager, luckily I had him. Because basically what he did, and with, you know, unsolicited, he sent my site, a link to my site, out to somebody else that he trusted who does not know me, and say, you know, be brutally honest. What are your thoughts? And he was brutally honest. It was, you know, it was awful. And he made all these suggestions of what I should do, and that was really the start of me kind of, you know, the light bulb of like, oh, I've got to invest in a premium theme, so I got to research, you know, and look into that. I've got to get a new logo, and you know, I kind of reached out at that point to some people I knew to get a logo created, so it wasn't, you know, a service or anything like that. And then I've reached, you know, kind of researched locally to find, you know, who are the trusted photographers. I actually did an exchange of services at that point, because again, I was broke and hemorrhaging money, and I was like, you know, I need these professional photos done. I'll give you in exchange I don't know what I said for some Facebook services. Back then I undervalued myself, but it was a great trade for me because it was a huge upgrade in terms of, that was that like serious look photo that I was using for like 3 years before I had her redo it. But that was a big upgrade from what I was using before that, whereas like I cropped my head out of a family picture kind of thing. It's ridiculous. So, there weren't a lot of tools in that way, but one place I started in terms of tools was Aweber for my email list. And that eventually upgraded that to Infusionsoft or Confusionsoft or whatever you want to call it, which I've been doing for a couple of years now. But yeah, in terms of design, I just, I use Genesis Framework first of all for my website, just as the template, the theme.
Okay.
But then, I have some custom work done on it. Make sure the colors are consistent with the logo, and have my designer look at it to make sure everything's right too.
Yeah, and I think you make some great points. You could be the best in the world, but if you don't appear professional, it doesn't appear that way, and if you're not using all the image sizes correctly and just the full shebang, you're just going to come across as somebody who isn't professional. And I think one point you kind of slipped in there that I think is something to point out that we've done as well is do trade for services.
Yeah.
When we started to do that for like videos and different things like that, oh my God! I mean, when I saw what we could do with the video versus what somebody who was really good at it, our video views shot through the roof. And one way to go about that, and for the listeners out there, is think what you can do on a trade for that sort of stuff. Don't go cheap on it, and you don't have to if you have something of value in return, and almost everybody does. So I think that's an awesome piece of advice. Make sure everything looks good and do it right, and let the right people do it.
And it's scary, spending even back because I remember like how much $100 or $500 was to me at that point, but the flip side of that is the $500 or $1,000 or $5,000 you could have been making if you had a better first impression. So
exactly, yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. It's something I wasn't really thinking about when we were going to talk today about some mistakes, but that's an awesome piece of advice that I think everybody really needs to heed and make sure that they follow. And moving on here a little bit to some of the more technical aspects, targeting. I know a lot of people, Facebook comes down to value, and again, I'm going to let you, either validate this or not, but I think some of the biggest things are creating value and then getting that value offer to the right person, which comes down to targeting. So targeting is such a key thing. Can you talk about maybe some of the targeting mistakes that you made or common mistakes that are being made in regards to that area?
Yeah, I mean, the reason Facebook is so powerful is because you got over 1.5 billion people using it actively, feeding it a ton of data, and they're there a lot. So they're easy to reach. They're there for you to be reached. It's a matter of finding that person, that ideal audience. But one of the mistakes, there's several mistakes people make with targeting. The first that they do is like, I'm just going to target people based on interests. And so it's, let's say it's, again, my Facebook marketing business. Yes, I'm just going to target people who have interests in Social Media Examiner and Amy Porterfield and Mari Smith and, Facebook marketing, whatever, and sell my stuff to them. And then I run that for a while, spend a bunch of money, it fails, and I'm like, Facebook ads don't work. That's the biggest mistake people make is number one, they only target by interest, completely neglecting if they already have an audience, a built-in audience that they aren't targeting. So, for example, if they have a fan base, you should be targeting those people too to sell your stuff or anything. If you have an email list, you should be uploading that as a custom audience and targeting those people. If you have website visitors, I sure hope you have website visitors. You should be using website custom audiences and targeting those people who visit your website. So all these people will know who you are and are more likely to act. So that's the first of all, the biggest mistake is not targeting people who are actually close to you in the first place. The second is not understanding that these users are at various stages of the funnel. And if all you do is try to sell something, don't expect to be successful. So you could have this large target audience of 100,000 people who could potentially buy from you. This probably 99.9% aren't going to buy today no matter how good your ad is, and especially if they don't all know you. So the key is to send them kind of down this funnel. It's like, okay, well, first of all, a lot of people don't know you, so let's warm them up with some really helpful content that solves a problem for them. So create that blog post, send them to your site. Okay, they've been to your site, so now you're building up this website custom audience. We don't stop there, first of all. You should probably keep promoting these blog posts, because some people will be ready to buy from you after one blog post, some people will be 100, some will never buy from you. The point is we want to continue to send that value to them too. But then we also want an email list or build an email list. So again, I wouldn't be focused too much on targeting people who don't know you with an offer, because an email address is valuable to us as marketers, but also as users. Like, I don't give my email address out to just anybody. I don't want to be spammed and all this stuff from people I don't know or care about. So it's a matter of, okay, now that they trust you because you've been sending them to your site and they're reading your content and they love it, let's target those same people with an offer, for a free offer in exchange for an email address. And those people will be much more likely than someone who doesn't know you. So, okay, now they're at that stage. And then when you are ready to sell, you're selling to those groups. You're selling to people who have been to your website, people who like your page, people who have opted in for something. And at that point, you're much more likely to sell. And that you could break it down even more, that you've got a product, you introduce it, you send it to your landing page. I've seen so often that first time, they don't buy. But if I have a remarketing pixel on anyone who's landed on that landing page but didn't buy, it's just a matter of reminding them or giving them another angle, another reason that this is a good product. That's where it's most successful.
And that falls into the website, one of your website custom audiences, correct? People who come back and are view. And I know what you just said, just knowing my progression of learning here, the big part of all those custom audiences, I mean, that was a lot to swallow. And you're speaking right on point with some of the listeners, and then other people are like, what is he talking about? And let me just tell everybody out there, you can go to johnloomer.com, and he writes about all this stuff in detail and shows you how to go over everything. And right now, that just so everyone knows how to spell his name, is JONLOOMER, johnloomer.com. Because there is probably 8 to 10, if not more, of these website custom audiences that you can build where you can target directly and not just push that boost button. And on that note, John, can you talk about the boost button, and is it a value at all? Should people ever do it? I mean, why do they even have that there? Is that for people who don't want to dig into it and do it the right way, or is it something that still works?
Well, I mean, it's basically Facebook's easy button, and I like to describe it as the gateway drug to the good stuff. Because basically, you know, they've got a ton of marketers, people who have pages, and they're trying to make it, but a lot of people who have never advertised before, and they want it, and it's complicated. It really could be complicated, so they want to make it as easy as possible. So how do they do that? They provide the easy button, and they try to automate as much as they can for you. Now, obviously, that I'm not saying that can't work at all. Like, I've heard of some, because Facebook's targeting is so good that, like, when they automate this stuff, it can be pretty decent. But this is still top of the funnel stuff. So if you want to get more engagement for something, and you don't have some of these built-in audiences where you have all this website traffic already or whatnot, this tends to be good for engagement, where Facebook's going to show it to people who are likely to engage. But if you're trying to, promote something to build your email list or to sell something and you just hit the boost button, don't expect that to be all that effective.
Yeah.
So I just see, feel free to use it as like your first time experimenting with Facebook ads, but don't lean on it forever, please.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, a lot of these website custom audiences, that you need to go through Power Editor to build them. Is that correct, or is there other ways?
No, you don't have to. You can go through the Ads Manager as well within Facebook. So I'm glad you keep bringing up website custom audiences, because really this should be your priority, is building up that audience. So that's why it's so important to create a blog with helpful content that's not all about your product, that just answers people's questions. So when you share this content and sending them to your site, this is warming them up. It is gaining they're starting to gain trust and feel like you're someone who knows what you're talking about, and they're gaining that respect and start to recognize what your brand is and what it's all about. So then when you sell, you are selling to people who visited your site. So you need to be focused on building that audience, because that is the audience that's going to ultimately buy it.
Absolutely. I mean, it really makes perfect sense. If you kind of slow down and just think about it, well, yeah, you want to spend your money on the people who have some sort of interest in you. How high that is, it's hard to tell. But, you might as well start there versus just the masses and people who have no clue who you are. So that's something that we've learned, and I'm glad we've kind of dug into that, because that is just so vitally important. It's just to make your dollars go way further and more successful as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I only target my website visitors now, because my website traffic is at a point now where I don't need to go beyond that. So it's a really valuable group of people.
Well, yeah, that I think that'd be the best place to start. And then again, everyone, there are different layers and layers of this, and you can learn a lot from John if you start following him. Kind of move on to the next question here. What are some general frustrations that are overblown? Or maybe one way to ask this is, do people concentrate on the wrong things? And if they do, what are some of those wrong things?
Well, I mean, the first one is the biggest overblown complaint is Facebook changing the algorithm and organic reach and all that kind of stuff. Is the perception from some that Facebook is trying to screw marketers and force them to pay kind of at the expense of the quality of the news feed. And so first of all, it's a matter of understanding how Facebook works and how the news feed works. And there is an algorithm, yes. And guess what? It works. And if it wasn't working, so in order to test, is it working, the way the algorithm works is Facebook is attempting to show content to people that they are most likely to care about, instead of just being a fire hose feed, which clearly doesn't work that well, because Twitter is not growing anymore. Does not grow at anywhere close to the rate that Facebook is. And so Facebook continues to grow more than 10 years later, because and Facebook continues to tweak the algorithm to make sure they have all this intelligence to determine what people want to see and what they don't. Sometimes they make mistakes, sometimes it's not perfect, but the key is they are active on Facebook. They remain more active on Facebook than anywhere else, and they continue to grow. So that's the test. Now, you accept that. You accept that Facebook is showing, because otherwise, if, for example, Facebook were screwing brands and not showing their content intentionally, even though it was good content that users wanted to see, that would be at the expense of the user experience. Users would be upset. Users would use Facebook less often, and this would be bad for everybody. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, what's most important to the advertiser and to the brand is that users have a great experience, because the more that they are on Facebook, the more data that is collected on them, the more people that you can reach through ads and organically, because they're on Facebook. But the minute they start flying away because they don't like the content anymore, you can't reach them regardless. So I think, yes, I think that's the biggest thing, just understanding your role. I mean, there's so many things that are going to impact it. Look, we are brands. We are boring in general. So we can't really expect people to want to see our content at a high rate. Now, some brands do a great job, right, and they have great organic reach because they're able to make it interesting. But also keep in mind, that's why the targeting is so important. If you target the wrong group to build a fan base, and then you create content, even good content, that they don't want to see, you can't complain. It's your fault. You built a bad fan base to start with. Yeah. So I guess one of those mistakes, yes, is with that targeting, you're building a bad fan base, and they don't respond to your content. So yeah, I think the organic reach is a big one that I could talk all day about. It's not something that bothers me. And if you chase an algorithm, you're going to be frustrated. If you're constantly like, oh, now link shares are get more reach, so I got to create more link shares. Oh, it used to be photo shares, so I got to create more photos. Like, no, that's not the point. And that's actually one reason Facebook tweaks this so often is because every time they make a change, brands ruin it, and then they try to manipulate it, right?
Yeah.
Because for the longest time, it was like, oh, text updates got the most reach. So what happened? Did you see then users all of a sudden feel like they had to make all these text updates? No, they didn't. They just continue to create posts the way they normally do. Brands, though, would try to share links within text updates, and they're ugly and stupid. And we ruined it, so now text updates were no longer preferable because no one wanted to respond to those. So if you chase an algorithm, you'll constantly be frustrated. If you just focus on creating really good content that your audience will want to engage with, you're not frustrated. It's okay. Like none of these tweaks to the algorithm really matter that much. It's like, oh, good. I'm glad they did that. That's like the latest algorithm change was they're going to reward. Basically they're going to be watching if people spend more time on a particular piece of content than others. That could mean that they enjoy it, even if they don't like, comment, or share. So things like that, it's like, oh yeah, well that makes sense. So I mean that's the organic reach is a big one, but the other one's just like, so you talk about reach being a metric that I think is overblown. I don't really care about. I care most of that I'm reaching the right people, whether it's 500 or 50,000, as long as it's the right people. Like I could have reached 50,000, but none of them really cared about my stuff. Or I reach 500 and they're all like, big time fans who all, go to my site and buy stuff. So that's important.
And to kind of make sure I'm understanding and kind of recap, I mean, it is true that the organic reach, in the past, you had 5,000 fans, you'd put a post, everybody would see it. And it is true that went down to the 5 to 8% or whatever, something like that. Now, that is true, but what you're saying is that what's not true is that makes Facebook not a viable platform. And is that kind of what, because I remember thinking a couple years ago or a few years ago when that happened, people are, well, then what's the point of being on Facebook? What's the point of getting fans? And what you're saying is, whoa. Yes, that's true. But no, it's still important to do all those things because you can target to those people. And if you're getting the right fans, it's still an amazing, valuable advertising medium. When we say advertising, we mean distributing content and then slipping in a marketing message every now and then. Am I following you correctly on what we're saying as far as like a general frustration that gets overblown?
To a point. Now, understand, reach was never 100%.
Okay.
People try to act like all of a sudden one day we weren't reaching 100%. The expectation that we ever reach 100% of our fans with a post is ridiculous.
Yeah.
That assumes that 100% of your fans are online at that point. What percentage of our followers are we reaching with a tweet on Twitter? It's like less than 1%, and there's no filtering going on there. So no, you are never reaching 100% of your fans. It's just the filtering has changed.
Gotcha.
So that's the first thing. But something else, there's been that algorithm, but there's also more competition in the season than there's ever been before. Brands are there more than ever, so that influences things. Brands are creating more content than ever before, so that impacts it. But here's the big one that not enough people think about. My page has been around for 3.5 years. When someone liked my page 3.5 years ago, they had an interest in my content. Do they still care about Facebook ads? And that doesn't mean they unlike my page, they stop caring about Facebook ads. But especially for these pages that have been around for a while, this type of phenomenon is something we don't give enough attention to, that you have stale fans. That if you built a big portion of your fan base 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, you can't expect to reach many of those people because many of them probably just don't care anymore.
I hear you.
So anyway, yeah, but you're right though. I mean, 5 to 8%. That's still 5 to 8. That's still people who care. Like the Facebook, if the algorithm is correct and they're doing it appropriately, they're showing it to the 5 to 8% of people who care the most. And this includes obviously that to be online around that time as well. So as long as they're showing it to the right people, That's all I care about. Now, I don't mean to boast, but I'm still seeing 20, 25, 30%.
Oh, really?
And I think a lot of people still are too. And it also depends on, in a lot of these metrics that come out are more focused around these brands that are huge. And a lot of these same issues we talk about too. But they have like 1 million, 2 million, 5 million fans. And first of all, they've been around for a long time. And the second thing is you get a lot of casual fans like, oh, yeah, I like that. I don't want to hear from them, but, yeah, I like Nike, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, so they don't care if they see this stuff in the news. Now, I'm not denying that there are people who have big organic reach problems. I'm just saying there are a lot of factors that contribute to it. Part of it's the age of that audience. Part is, how you built that audience in the first place, and we've got to acknowledge mistakes. We all make them when we do it. If we're focusing just on the cheapest like, sometimes it's not going to be quality.
Mm-hmm.
And so all these things contribute. But, end of the day, the main thing is, are you reaching the right people who are actually going to engage with it in the first place? Now, if you're reaching 5% of people and they're not really engaging with your stuff, you might want to start from scratch because it sounds like you didn't build a very good audience.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Let's move on to budgeting mistakes. I know you mentioned earlier in the podcast here that you didn't spend enough, but what are, I guess you can speak to that more if you'd like, or any other type of, money matters that people aren't spending the correct way, or because I know you can start to spend a lot at the beginning or a little at the beginning. Can you talk a little bit about some mistakes people make there?
I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is kind of the opposite of what I did. So they don't know what they're doing, and they're spending hundreds or thousands of dollars a day before they know what they're doing. And so they don't even really know how to measure success. And they're running all this money and like, oh, it didn't work, it's not working or whatever. And, my approach and what I recommend is that you spend, I'm not saying $1 a day like I did, but you're spending a lower amount to figure and testing out what works and what doesn't work, kind of getting your sense of what you're doing. Once you figure out what works, then escalating those things that are working and stopping those things that aren't. So, I think that's one of the first big mistakes that I see advertisers make. Another is having a budget that is inconsistent with the audience size. So, like, I'll hear often, like, I can't spend my budget, or this is really, like, this, I'm getting really high CPM, or whatever it is. It's because, and like, they might be using website custom audiences. Like, yeah, you have this really relevant audience, these 5,000 people. And they're trying to spend $500 a day targeting those 5,000 people. And so one of two things will happen in that case. First of all, you're not going to spend your entire budget. And the second would be Facebook will try to, and as a result, just be pounding those people. And in order to pound those people, that means they have to outbid everybody to reach those people. So your CPM, the cost to reach them, is going to go sky high, which is going to make your advertising basically worthless because it's just going to be too expensive to reach them. So, those are two big mistakes. Wow, there's so many issues with bidding and budgeting in general. But those are two main ones.
What about the auto bid function that Facebook offers? Do you personally here internally, actually it just came up yesterday that we were talking about this, and because we're trying to, you got to gauge, just like everybody else, and especially with the small business, sometimes there's a 1 or 2 person shop that are trying to do all this stuff, and it's hard to monitor. Okay, now I'm spending this. Okay, now slow down the bidding. Okay, speed up the bidding, all that stuff. So we're trying to get the most bang for our buck through time spent, our staff's time. There's value and money in that. So we're trying to figure that out. Can you speak a little bit about the auto bid feature, and if that's something that people can trust?
Yeah. So by default, let's say you're running an ad set for with the objective of clicks to website. So in that case, by default, Facebook will optimize for website clicks. So they'll show it to people most likely to click your link, and they'll also bid. There'll be an automated bid. Also bid whatever is necessary to reach those people. And in general, that actually is the best way to go. Because first of all, Facebook's optimizing, and they're going to spend whatever's necessary to reach these optimal people who are, so of the, let's say, 100,000 people that you're targeting, they're going to focus on those 10,000 or so people who are most likely to click your link. So that's, first of all, a good thing. But again, one of the pitfalls of the auto bidding is if, for that same example I just gave, is if your bid is too high for the audience, that cost to reach them could go really high. So you have to be aware of that, first of all. Now,
is there a way to be aware of that before you click on that auto? I mean, does it tell you, hey, this is about what it's going to cost?
No.
Not that one, huh?
And really, I mean, you just have to be conscious of it and have a threshold for what you tend to expect and monitor it, right? So I consider an average CPM, especially when you're optimizing, to be about $5. Now, it can be more depending on the audience you're targeting, but especially if you have multiple ad sets going and you have one that's just way above everything else, it kind of give you a tip that you should. I mean, I think with that $5 kind of rule of thumb, then we're looking at, especially if you're optimizing, it's got an audience of about, let's say 50,000 people spending $5 to $10 a day, and having a CPM in that $5 to $10,000 area is kind of what, or $5 to $10 area is about what you can expect. Now, typically though, optimizing is either best for bigger audiences or, again, lower budgets with these medium-sized budgets. So,
John, I think it cut out a little bit. Can you repeat that last sentence?
So typically, when you're optimizing, it tends to be best either for bigger audiences, so for Facebook to pick out the people most likely to perform a desired action, or lower budgets with these medium-sized audiences. On the flip side, let's say, like with these website custom audiences, you have an audience of 500 people who visited the specifics page of your site. In that case, it makes no sense to optimize for a couple reasons. First of all, if Facebook optimizes, of those 500 people, they're going to focus on, I don't know, 50 or 100 or whatever. And in reality, all of those people are equally likely to act, or at least they should be. Let's say they visited a landing page but they didn't buy. So we want to reach all of them. So you don't want to optimize in that case. You'll want to use either CPM, which is just where you're optimizing, technically optimizing for impressions. It's not for an action, but they're going to show it to everybody. The CPM bidding is they'll show it to everybody as many times as they can within your budget. Or daily unique reach, which is showing to everybody, as many people within your audience as possible, but no more than once per day. So I would use those types of manual bidding when you have an extremely relevant and small audience, and you want to make sure you hit everybody. Because honestly, if you got an audience of 50,000, you usually don't want to hit everybody in that case. 50,000 or more, really. I mean, you want, because really, but the thing is, when it comes to like targeting my website visitors to, so we're talking about a few 100,000 people here. I'm not just talking to a single page to promote a product or another blog post. I do have Facebook optimized in that case. It's more when it's really the smallest of audiences.
Gotcha.
And then, the other manual bidding is a CPC, but really CPC, you're just bidding for engagement in that case, and people need to understand that. I think so many people come from the Google world doing CPC, thinking that's the way you should do it, and thinking cost per click means cost per website click, but it doesn't. It means cost per any click on your ad, and you're just optimizing for engagement in that case.
Gotcha. So to kind of recap, your expert advice would be for people getting into it, because this was our heads were spinning, like, which one do we do on this?
Yeah.
So we're saying, like, clicks to website is the best action to bid for when it's a bigger audience? I guess we could call it less relevant than a highly relevant audience, like a website visitor. So for your smaller audiences that are a little bit or a lot more highly relevant audiences, you would go more with the CPM, and then for bigger audiences that could possibly be less relevant, you might as well go with the clicks to website. Am I following you correctly on that?
Well, to be clear, clicks to website is just one of the objectives that Facebook can optimize for. So it's a matter of, are you going to have Facebook optimize for one of these actions or not? And yeah, it's usually the bigger audiences, the ones that aren't as refined, that you want to have Facebook's help to optimize. If you have a really, really small audience where you know everybody in there is equally highly relevant to act, that's where you want it. You don't want Facebook to optimize. You want to hit everybody, and you want to use CPM or daily unique reach in that case. Hello? Hello?
John, I don't know, we had a little technical difficulty there. I got dropped off. So we were talking on the clicks to website CPM. You mentioned you just want to maybe recap that.
Yeah, so to be clear, clicks to website is just one of the ways Facebook can optimize. There are close to, 10 or so objectives that you can have Facebook optimize for to basically auto bid based on, showing it to people most likely to perform that action. So clicks to the website, that's one example. Now, so in other words, if you have a large audience where it's not that refined and you want Facebook to focus on the person most likely to perform that desired action, using the auto bid is going to be your best bet. Now, if you got a really, really small refined audience, and the example I gave before is where the audience of people who have visited a landing page for a product but did not buy. These people should all be equally likely to purchase, and you also don't want Facebook to optimize because you want to hit everybody instead of just picking and choosing. So that's when you should use CPM or daily unique reach.
All right, I hope everyone go back and listen to this part because I can't tell you how important that is. And when you get to this level of understanding all of this, those are the details that are going to really kind of separate what you were doing to take in the next step. So I'm going to encourage everybody to go back for the last minute and re-listen to that because that's some gold right there, and I can't emphasize that enough. So thanks for explaining all that, John. All right, I guess we're just good to one of our last questions here. What are some mistakes make when building their audience? We've talked a little bit about that, but do people mess up in any way? Are they building like a wrong audience on accident when they think they're building a correct audience? I don't know if I'm asking that the right way.
No, absolutely. So I think, the approach that most brands take is I've got to build my fan base. It's usually a fan base we're talking about when it's an audience, but it could be website customized, could be anything, as quickly as possible, as cheaply as possible. And part of it's because of that vanity number. Or they think that all fans, for example, are created equal. And then if you've got 100,000 instead of 1,000, then that'll just be 100 times as many sales and everything else. But the truth is that all the quality of those people. So if your focus is, for example, on running contests and become a fan in exchange, because we run all these contests and get free stuff, or building your email list through contests, the people you're attracting then are the people who want free stuff. So when you're ready to sell to them, don't expect them to buy. They just want that free stuff. But the other thing is it even a relevant free product in the first place? If it's completely irrelevant, forget about it. Giving away iPads, all they wanted was that iPad.
Yeah.
But additionally, I think we can get too obsessed with, when we run these ads, what is the cost per page like? Or cost per website click or whatever it is. Because the main thing is whether we're attracting the right person in the first place. It's the same thing as like when you're building an email list and we're talking about a contest, did it cost $1 to build that, for each email address? Should it cost 30 cents? You know, it doesn't mean necessarily 30 cents is better than $1 because it depends on the quality of that person. So, for example, the country you target makes a huge impact on the cost just to reach them. So, if you're building your fans with just by targeting India, you're going to build a really, really cheap audience really, really quickly. And I'm not going to say that there aren't customers in India, because I do have some customers in India, but you have to be aware of the potential for click farms and stuff like that too. It's like, where is your core audience? Are they in India? If they are, you know, go for it. But otherwise, don't focus just on that cost, because otherwise you're going to be building an audience that ultimately may not be responsive to you, may not buy from you, may not click that link down the road.
Gotcha. Well, John, I have learned a lot from you just from right now. I've been taking my notes and knowing where I want to go back to and re-listen to, and I know our audience as well has learned a ton from you, and I definitely thank you for your time. And I want to let people know how to follow you to learn more, because a lot of the stuff that we've talked about today, I've seen very long, extensive blog posts where you dig into these details. So I want to let people know how to follow you for free, and then I also understand that you have a Power Hitters Club, an advanced training class, and just want to let everybody know how to sign up for those. So if you can let our listeners know, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, so just go to johnloomer.com. That's where you're going to find my regular blog posts on pretty much anything you need. But also for the more advanced Facebook marketer, someone who spends, you know, probably a couple $1,000s or more per month, or if you want to be a Facebook marketer, the Power Hitters Club was made for you. So if you go to johnloomer.com/PHC, this includes weekly webinars just for that group, so that catches everybody up on what's going on in Facebook advertising right now, and there's a Q&A session as well. We've got a private community in there, which is awesome. It's not just that I'm in there answering questions, which I am, but so many other advanced Facebook marketers too that can share their experiences and can help you. We've also got weekly blog posts only for that group, and huge discounts, because I'm running workshops, so these 90-minute to 2-hour live webinars every 2 months, and members get them for $20 while non-members pay $147. So it's a huge benefit to it. So that's, again, johnloomer.com/PHC.
Okay, and that's JONLOOMER.com, and for the Power Hitters Club, it's that with a /PHC.
That's
All
right.
right. Well, John, hey, I appreciate your time, and you know, I look forward to continuing to learn from you, and you have yourself an awesome rest of your week.
All right. Thanks so much, Dave.
All right. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.